Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another GINSA update on the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. I'm Ari Chikral, GINSA's Assistant Director of Foreign Policy. I'm honored to be joined by IDF retired Major General Yaakov Amidror, a GINSA Distinguished Fellow and former Israeli National Security Advisor, and IDF retired Major General Yaakov Aish, GINSA's Senior Vice President for Israeli Affairs and former Israeli Defense Attaché to the US and Canada, and Head of Operations for the IDF General Staff. As always, you can find the latest information and analysis that GINSA has produced at ginsa.org. I welcome listeners to use the chat function in Zoom to ask any questions for our panelists. General Amidror, I'll start with you. Could you provide an update on the situation in Gaza over the last week?
Yeah, the area of the south was always under the military control of the IDF. We have some areas in which we didn't finish the job yet, but it's a question of days. And then the next stage in the north will be the beginning of the cleaning of the area. Remnants of Hamas, find all the underground tunnels and to blow them with the centers had been exposed and part of it was destroyed. So in the north, we are almost completed the first stage and we are moving to the second one. Less forces, less firepower, less air force, and more accurate intelligence about points that we should go and destroy. In the south, we are intensified our efforts around Khan Yunis. Another brigade is involved now in the war around Khan Yunis. We need another few weeks to be in the south around Khan Yunis at the same situation as we are in the north, and the decision should be taken about Rafa. Should we go to Rafa or not? The Rafa, it's a problematic area for itself. Of course, it's the bridge to Egypt under the ground, and there are some tunnels there, and it is very close to the Egyptian forces, and that might bring some friction, and this is why we are now have to make the decision. We didn't find yet the leadership of Hamas. We hope that we will be more close in the next weeks. We had a tragedy last weekend when 3 hostages succeeded to release themselves. Probably one of our forces killed the tourist which kept them in a house in the north, in Sajaya, and they went out and identified by our forces as terrorists and had been killed. It's a huge tragedy. Everyone feels very bad about it, but it's the battlefield. It's happened. In the north, the same level of friction as in the last few weeks, a little bit difference relating to the amount of missiles that had been launched from the other side and the casualties of Hezbollah because of it. Now they announce that they have almost 120 people killed. We think that the number is higher than that, but what they had been admitted by them. In Israel, there are some settlements like Manara, which suffered a lot of destruction. They succeeded to destroy many parts. So these settlements are very close to the border, very, very close to the border. But both sides proving by their action, by limited action, that they don't want war. So we kill more Hezbollah people, and they are launching more rockets and missiles into our sides, destroying, as I said, settlements and some IDF strong points. But both sides are very careful not to exaggerate in their reaction because both sides do not want the war. During last week, there was a big difference in the threat from Yemen. The Houthis succeeded to block the Red Sea, something very big relating to the international flow of commerce. It's a very important bottleneck in the international lines of shipment. 30% of the shipment of the world is going through this area to the Suez Canal and back from the Suez Canal, from Europe to the east and from the east to Europe. Israel is in the middle. No ship is going to Israel. All the ships which are crossing the area are going to Israel and then to Europe and other places. So the United States of America decided to build an international force, try to keep the strait open. Nothing happened yet. It's only the decision and the organization of the international force. As always, America is the force, and all the others are coming into the organization which organized by the United States of America. Apparently, ironically, the Chinese have a huge interest that access will be open, but they are not ready to join the forces. They don't want to take any part in the operation. In a way, we have now a very interesting situation in the south, that there is a kind of a grid of those who are facing the Houthis. It's the American Navy and American other forces in the region, Saudi Arabia and Israel, informal grid under the umbrella of CENTCOM. The information of the radars shared by all the partners, and the interception of the Houthis missiles and land and cruise missiles, also done by all the three members of the unofficial alliance. So we believe that we have a good answer to the threats of the ballistic missiles and the cruise missiles, and the opening of the Strait is not our job. It's not Israeli job. By the way, Egypt will suffer a lot from this change, because third of its foreign currency is coming from the Suez Canal, almost $10 billion a year. So Egypt will be the number one suffered state from the situation. Sudan are losing the ability to bring everything through the ports of Sudan, and the same is about Aqaba in Jordan, which is the only port that they have. They can export through Israel, Haifa, but this is the only port that they have. So it's not an Israeli problem, as we understand it, and we are ready to give the Americans all the time which is needed to solve it. What's important here is the Iranians are keeping themselves far from the scene. They sent Hezbollah to fight against Israel near the border between Lebanon and Israel. They don't want a big operation in Lebanon. Their forces in Syria are not active at all against Israel. There are some, militias which are launching here and there mortars, shells, and some Katyushas. It's not serious. And in Yemen, everyone understands that it is the ballistic missile hadn't been produced by the Houthis. Everyone understands that it is the long hand of Iran, but Iran is out of the scene, and they are okay with the situation. It's very interesting in the West Bank. In the West Bank, we use the war to initiate big operations against the terrorist cells in the West Bank. We arrested almost 2,500 people, and we killed almost 250. It's operations which are changing the situation on the ground. Everything is done, by the way, in the West Bank by our reserve forces. There is only one battalion in very little corner of the West Bank, which is regular. All the forces are reserves and are doing a wonderful job. They clean the refugee camp of Jenin, the refugee camp of Shechem, of Nablus is slowly is going to be cleaned, and the situation is very calm on the ground. We're succeeding with the Palestinian Authority to keep it calm, and very important from our point of view. So we don't face a multi-front war, but we have the skirmishes around the border between Lebanon and Israel, and the missiles attack from time to time from Yemen, and we succeeding to keep the fronts quiet and to concentrate all our efforts in Gaza. We need another probably 2 months for intensive operations in the south, and then to go to a year in which we will clean the Gaza Strip with less intensive operations based on intelligence that will be gathered from terrorists which had been captured and will be captured, interrogations, many papers and data which was captured in the headquarters of Hamas. Huge operation to bring together all these materials and to take all the intelligence which might help us to be better execute the second stage. I believe that the picture of the infrastructure will be much better understood by us through those paper and the media which was collected by our forces in all the headquarters that we succeeded to take control on. So this is the situation. Here people begin to speak about the day after. I think it's too early, but there are a few ideas who can take responsibility. We have only two interests in the Gaza Strip after the year of the cleaning, when we pull all our forces out. First, that the fence will be secure. No one can reach the fence. One mistake that we did in the past, allow the Palestinians to get to the fence. And the second interest is freedom of action for Israel militarily in the Gaza Strip based on intelligence that will be gathered. We are comparing it to Jenin in a way to what we are doing according to foreign sources in Syria in the last 11 years, trying to eliminate every attempt by Hamas in the future to build something that might be a threat to Israel. When I say Hamas, I mean all the terror organization together. So this is the two interests that we will have in Gaza. We will not be responsible for the civilian needs of the population, not for food, not for water, not for oil, gas, whatever. This commitment was ended in the 7th of October. After we will pull out all our forces from Gaza, it will be the responsibility of the people in Gaza themselves and everyone in the world who wants to take responsibility and to bring it in, but in one condition: it will not be Hamas or any other terror organization. All the other civilian organizations that might bring food, water, oil, gas, whatever is needed into the Gaza Strip, God bless them. So this is the situation on the ground. If you have any question about that, I'm more than happy to answer. If Aish has any.
Thank you, General Amidjar, for that excellent overview and a number of points I certainly want to return to throughout the discussion. But I'll turn to General Aish first. If there are any overarching points you'd also like to highlight, but then also digging into what General Amidjor detailed the tragic killing of 3 hostages. I'm wondering if you could elaborate more on what happened. There's been a steady trickle of information that has come out in the media, so if you could, detail what occurred, but then also if there's been any measures that the IDF has taken since it happened.
I'll start with this tragedy. Yes, the IDF have taken a few measures, and after they've conducted the debrief in the field, they came with the different conclusions that they've published, and the most immediate move that they took was to deliver pictures of the different hostages to the forces inside the Gaza Strip in order to allow them to identify them. And they are far more sensitive now to all type of technologies and measures that we are using and cameras that we are using inside Gaza, and we are analyzing more carefully the pictures that they are taking. I'm not sure if our participants are aware that one of our dogs with a GoPro on it have taken a picture of them in a house when the unit that was fighting there was clearing that house, and only afterwards they've realized that this is the hostages. But this is a very unfortunate incident. It's not less than a tragedy. And they will finish the debrief now that they have seen this footage. And I'm sure that they will take some further measures. This is about this said tragedy. Regarding the strategic goals of the IDF inside Gaza, no change. Our forces are inside in order to eliminate Hamas and to mount pressure and to create a better condition to release the hostages. They are still fighting in Khan Yunis, above ground and under the ground, as General Amidjor mentioned, and the clearing of the subterranean tunnels. It's really a challenge that needs not only forces and technology, but it needs time. The IDF is aiming really to eliminate the leadership, the infrastructure, the tunnels, and at the end of the day, to take the different capabilities that they have had. And that's why you can see footage that the IDF is releasing all type of munitions that the IDF is taking together with some other materials out of the Gaza Strip. Some of them are going to be analyzed and to create new intelligence for further missions. So basically, this is it inside Gaza. If we are going back to the 4 points that we mentioned in the last briefings, in order to analyze to what level they have achieved the mission of eliminating Hamas. So I would say carefully that in the north part of Gaza, it seems like they are not far from that in terms of determinism and the will to fight from Hamas militants in the north. It's very sporadic. I would not say that this will still exist over there. When it comes to leadership, most of it at the north part was eliminated. And if I go to the area of, we call it the leaders' quarter inside the Gaza, the whole subterranean system underneath was eliminated totally today. So it took the forces quite a lot of time, but they did it. I would like to add another fact, which is an important fact. Since the end of the ceasefire until today, more than 2,000 terrorists, Hamas terrorists, were killed inside Gaza. And I'm talking here since November 25th. The reason why I mention it is because some of us had the assumption that after the ceasefire, it will be very complicated for the IDF to ignite again and to move forward. From what we have seen in the north, it seems like they did it pretty well. Going to the south, to the area of Khan Yunis, they have expanded the number of brigades that are still fighting in Khan Yunis area to 5, as it was mentioned, in order to expedite the clear up and the clearing phase above ground and under the ground. And as you can see, it consumed a lot of forces, but it seems like at the end of the day, it achieved the goal. We didn't mention really the north. I would like to add only 2 facts about the north, the different skirmishes and the level of escalation. It's quite clear. General Amidor mentioned it, but if we are going back to Radwan unit that was deployed in October 7th, practically speaking, on our border, I can say that as for yesterday evening, it seems like they were pushed around 2 to 3 miles north to the border, and it is one of the missions of the Northern Command. This is one of the missions that the IDF is trying to achieve with the different operational activities and offensive activities the IDF is taking over there. This is it. I think the last point back to the south is what about Rafa, and especially about the connection between Egyptian Rafa and the Palestinian Rafa via the different tunnels. This is a source of supply, materials, and oxygen for Hamas. This is something that we will have to address, but maybe we can talk about it later. Last word about Judea and Samaria. General Amidor mentioned the fact that we are conducting operations there every day and night. The number of terrorists that were killed in Judea and Samaria is 288 terrorists, and more than 2,000 were arrested in Judea and Samaria. Most of them Hamas. I think I'll stop here. And
thank you, General Eish. I'll follow up with, just like General Amador, you hit on a number of points I certainly want to return to. But I'll follow up on one point you mentioned regarding the pause in combat operations and how the IDF was able to restart despite people thinking they would not be able to. There have been reports in recent days that there could be another pause, another hostage release deal. How if such a deal were to go into effect, how might it be different from the first time, considering the IDF's position has changed in the weeks since? And is there a concern that Hamas could use such a pause this time, having learned what the IDF does during a pause to evade Israeli capture, prepared to target Israeli forces once that pause ends? General Eish, I'll turn to you.
Well, continuity is one of the most important principles when we are conducting such a war. And in order to create an ongoing pressure on the enemy, it's a very important issue. But in order to achieve it, you don't have to use the same forces every day and every night. In order to create continuity, one of the ideas is to be able to change forces in order to do it. That's exactly what the IDF is doing. And the reason why I'm starting with that, because if the political level will decide to go for a pause or a ceasefire or something like that, they will have to renew that pressure later on, and they know how to do it. It seems like the IDF have proven it already. Having said that, we know already that brigades are going in and out to Gaza after 74 days, and they are going out for replenishment to get some rest. some of the reserve units and the regular units also to meet their families. And later on, they are going back to fight inside Gaza. So it seems like they are exercising it already. And the rest is really up to the political level. It's quite clear that the mission to release the abducted kids, women, elderly, and all the others is a high priority mission. And in order to achieve it, we will have to create constant pressure on Hamas.
We have a question in, General Amador. I'll turn to you for it. Is there any update on the flooding of the tunnels?
It was a test which was done, and when it will be fully used, it's a decision of the people on the ground. Now, when we understand what should be done and what system can do and cannot do, there are some limitations to that. Now it's in hold, and it will be used whenever the decision makers on the ground will decide.
General Amador, I'll stay with you. We have another question. What is left of Hamas's military capacity in Gaza, including personnel, arms, supplies, and how has their use of it shifted in recent weeks?
It's a closed area into which there is no constant flow of weapon system and so on and so forth. So whatever we are taking, it's going down from their capability. I think that in the north, as it was said by General Aish, it's only sporadic opposition. They cannot build something around units or to move units from one place to another. They can use what they have and going behind and kill some former soldiers, and from time to time even use an anti-tank missile if they have. But this is not the resistance that they had in mind. That was broken in the north. In the south, we are still fighting to gain this situation. We don't have it in our hands yet, not in Khan Yunis, in which we are concentrating now. And then the next stage will be to decide if we are going to Rafa or not. But in the north, I think that we succeeded to break the system. The system does not exist anymore as a system. Terrorists with capabilities, little teams that might get out of a tunnel or a house, broken house, or probably no house which is not broken in the north. They can get out and do something, but the organization in the north does not exist.
General Aish, there have been reports of the IDF striking Lebanese armed forces positions. Why has Israel been targeting these positions or striking areas where these forces are? Is this because there are terrorists located or with or near the LAF?
Okay, the IDF is not striking the LAF. This is not within the policy of the IDF. If a position was attacked, it means that either Hezbollah was using it for its own operational purposes, or it was a mistake. Definitely, there was one incident that the IDF declared that it was a mistake, and our participants have to understand the complexity. When you identify within the perimeter that Hezbollah is using on a daily basis to either launch rockets or mortars or anti-tank missiles, when you identify a small squad at night, the ability to discriminate that squad from Hezbollah, it's pretty tough. And it seems that so far the IDF succeeded with the discrimination quite well. Having said that, unfortunately, there was one incident that they were attacked. But there is no will to attack the Lebanese armed forces. If there was one, we will definitely see totally different results.
General Amador, turning to the south again, you identified the new multinational task force that'll be U.S. led to deal with Houthi aggression in the Red Sea. You identified certainly the negative impact this has had on Egypt's economy, but I'm wondering, how has this impacted the Israeli economy, and do you believe that the task force, as it's currently designed, can deter further Houthi aggression?
I think that without a real military operation, it will not deter the Houthis. They don't believe that force will be used, and this is why you have to show that you are ready to make what is needed and to use the force. About Israel economy is very little depend on the import from the East. Mainly cars from China and Japan.
And some raw materials.
Hmm?
And some raw materials.
Yes, some raw materials, but mostly cheap materials from China, which is not important to our economy. Our economy is more depends on the Europe and America, and much less on import from the East. Export is another issue, because we are exporting a lot from the Dead Sea to both India and China.
Red Sea.
And yes, and this is very fertilizers, and this is a very important export. We can do it around the Africa, and that will add 3 weeks to the length of the shipment, and probably another $2,000 to each carrier. It is economically, it's not a huge problem. It's more about the fact that they succeeded to isolate Israel from the south. It is not so much about economy, it's about the political situation. For Egypt and Sudan, it's economically a disaster. As I said, third of the foreign currency which the Egyptians are getting is, if I'm not mistaken, it's third from the canal. It's almost $10 billion a year. And for Sudan and for Jordan, it's the only port that they have is towards the Aqaba port and port of Sudan. So for them, it's a huge problem. For us, it's a minor problem that can be solved, and a car from Japan or from China will in Israel, it's very expensive, by the way, anyhow. So it will be another $250 per car. It's not something that will make any harm to our economy.
I'd like to remind everyone that they can ask questions of the panelists in Zoom's Q&A function. We have another one in. General Elisha, I'll turn to you for this. How is Hamas, other terrorists in Gaza, still firing barrage of missiles at Israel? Maybe you can detail what they've been firing and how the trend has gone in recent weeks.
Okay, 2 reasons. One, as I've described, the IDF is not yet controlling the area of Rafa. When I'm saying Rafa, people have to bear in mind that we are talking here about different neighborhoods. Rafa, Brazil, Shabura. This whole area is not under full control of the IDF. It's a big question if it's going to be the next phase, and when and how they are going to deal with it, with or without the connection of cutting the lines of supply from Egypt. This is one area which is not cleared, although they are attacking over there in a very surgical way. The other area, which is the humanitarian area that was allocated for refugees from the north, was used by Hamas. They simply mobilized to that area rockets, and they use it to launch from there. That's how cynical they are. And I'm not sure if people are aware to the fact that 10% of what they are launching is falling inside Gaza. So if we are talking about more than 11,000 rockets that they have launched towards Israel up till now, bear in mind that around 1,200 fell inside Gaza. This is the issue behind the rockets. There was another question about the hostages. As I mentioned, one of the lessons after the tragedy of us, IDF unit, killing 3 of our hostages, we delivered pictures to the soldiers that they can carry now in order to identify who is who if there is a doubt, with all the complexity that it brings into the battlefield. And it's not obvious when you are fighting in a build-up area. Think about the different buildings and the different threats and the IEDs, and add to it the threat coming under the ground, the piers from the tunnels and so on and so forth.
If I could combine a few of the questions we have together, is Egypt complicit in the resupply of Hamas through Rafa, and then how reliant could Egypt be to destroy tunnels or monitor the Egyptian side in any post-war situation? General Amidror, I'll turn to you.
Formally, the Egyptians claim that they don't have any tunnel. They destroy all of them. They make a buffer zone of more than a mile, to be sure, more than 2 miles, to be sure that no one is getting close to the border of Gaza Strip. So it will not be easy to dig another tunnel after all of them had been destroyed a few years ago. But from the first impression, and we have to be very careful because it was not investigated yet. The first impression from what was caught inside Gaza, we have more than a good reason to ask ourselves how much was smuggled through Egypt into the Gaza Strip. Was it through any tunnel which exists, or through the pass of Rafa? Maybe the control of the Egyptian security forces was not so tight. I don't know. It's a good question. We don't have a good answer yet. We have to investigate and to see what we found there, and to try to understand through that if there was a flow of weapon system in the last few years from Egypt into Gaza.
General Amidror, in your opening, you mentioned the considerations Israel has for what post-war Gaza could look like from Israel's interests. Israeli National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi recently wrote a column signaling numerous things, but among them commitment to post-war reconstruction in Gaza, as well as seemingly hinting at least it was widely interpreted that he was hinting a greater openness to the Palestinian Authority taking a part in some way in post-war Gaza. I'm wondering, has Israel's position regarding PA involvement in Gaza shifted or changed over time? And I believe in that piece he mentioned that the PA would certainly have to take widespread reforms. I'm wondering if you think if the PA is if it's possible or likely for them to take those reforms.
The Palestinian Authority is a very weak and corrupted system. They don't succeed even to control what they have to control in the West Bank. So it will be almost impossible for them in the present situation to control the Gaza Strip. First. Second, the Americans and few Israelis speaking about forming the authority and then to let it come into the Gaza Strip to take responsibility for the civilian side. The day after the reform, ask me the question. I know the Palestinian Authority, since it was established, and even before it was established, some of the people there, I know before they had been established as a Palestinian Authority, and their ability to reform themselves or to agree to a reform or to change the character of their system or to stop educating the young generation to hate and to kill Israelis and to be less corrupted. I think it's a nice vision without or with very, very little percentage of ability to implement.
General Aish, simultaneously, seemingly interesting that the multiple reports are coming out in proximity to another, but there's been reports that Hamas officials, including Ismail Haniyeh and Khalid Mashal, have reportedly discussed post-war governance with Gaza and the West Bank with senior PA officials. Obviously, Hamas is not acceptable in any form of governance in Gaza or the West Bank, considering Israel's war is about eliminating the terrorist group. But I'm wondering what these reports, what these conversations maybe signal about how Hamas and the PA have interpreted how the war has gone so far, and their considerations for what the future holds.
I think they might have a few reasons. Some of them relate, to the need to show that they're still having a leadership, still functioning, still in touch with those who are left under the ground inside Gaza, and it's part of the information operation that they are trying to conduct, and that's why they are very active, from Lebanon and from Qatar. This is the reason. According to the Israeli policy, it seems like the announcement that came from our Prime Minister and government are quite clear about Hamas and its affiliates and about the Palestinian Authority and its affiliates. I'm not sure who are the other options, if there are, but definitely it's not going to be those.
General Aish, how do Israelis...
By the way, the Hamas leadership and members afraid from Fatah leadership and members afraid from Hamas, probably more than we are afraid from them. They remember the lesson that they learned when Gaza Strip was taken over by Hamas. Many of them had been killed. Few of them had been pushed from roofs in Gaza Strip, and many of them had been shot in their knees, so they will be forever on a wheelchair. I don't think that anyone in the Palestinian Authority will be happy to see Hamas taking part in the controlling of the West Bank. They know the consequences.
General Aish, how do Israelis view what's taken place at the UN Security Council this week with a vote over a resolution calling for a ceasefire being repeatedly delayed?
I think that the declaration came out of the cabinet and the prime minister is very clear. The mission is very clear, to eliminate Hamas. And before we finish that mission, all the other declarations have no meaning.
General Amidjor, there have been reports, last time we had a webinar, there were also these reports that US officials would like Israel to shift by the end of this month from high intensity fighting to lower intensity operations. You mentioned that such higher intensity operations could maybe be required to take up to 2 months. Wondering what could such a shift entail? What the relationship and the discussions are like going on between the Israeli government and the US government.
I'm not in the closed room, so I don't know the details from within the closed rooms. What I know is that the National Security Advisor of the United States of America was here and say we are not dictating any timetable. Yes, we have an interest that it will be less intensive in the future, but I don't see any American leader dictating Israel when to finish a stage in a war and to take the risk that the second stage will not work. It is the interest of the United States of America to eliminate Hamas. It is very clear. And how time is needed, I think it's a dialogue between friends. We will succeed to convince the Americans that we need another month or two. I don't see that making the difference for the history of the United States. It might make the difference for the history of Israel.
On a similar note, I'll open this up to both of you. Do you believe Israel is receiving everything the IDF needs to continue the fight in Gaza, as well as if full-scale war breaks out in the north with Hezbollah? General Aisha, I'll start with you.
I would like, first of all, to relate to your question to General Amidor. You were talking about low-intensity move to a low-intensity conflict, change the continuity, the intensity. I'm afraid it's a very tactical and operational question, and it's up to the theater commander to decide what kind of tactics are applied in order to achieve a mission. And I think that the level of discussions between Israel and the US is not really about tactics. It's about strategy, maybe about the day after, but definitely not about the different tactics that are decided by the commanders on the ground. Regarding the US support, definitely it's very significant from day one, and we can see it in different areas. I'll start with the political and international support that we are getting, up to the military support that we are getting during the war. Having said that, there is a room for bold moves, because I'm afraid that it's not only about the war in Gaza and the different battles taking place up at the north. It's about readiness to an escalation, a significant escalation up at the north. And in that sense, I think there is room to expedite certain things. And I'm sure that our colleagues in the Pentagon are briefed about it from the IDF and the Ministry of Defense.
General
But we should be very honest. The support that we are getting from the United States of America surprised all our enemies and fulfill our expectations. Always there are issues that should be solved, but basically I think we appreciate very, very much the support of the United States of America from the beginning of the war till today. It's both. It's about politics in the United Nations. It's about the another money support, which is important to symbolize the willingness of the United States of America to support Israel. And it, of course, it's about the military aid, which is coming in huge numbers by sea and by air.
General Amidor, have any IDF soldiers been killed because of Israeli restraint in their tactics or operations?
I don't understand the question.
Have any, because Israel takes a number of measures to ensure that civilians aren't killed in operations and things like that. So has any
there is no any way
there
is no any way to answer the question. It's too intensive, it's too crowded, and too many questions. And after the war, no one will have the ability to answer such a question. Civilians are part of the battlefield. We try to convince them to move out because they don't want to endanger them. Hamas trying to block the way out of the battlefield. Now in the south, it's even more complicated because they have many refugees from the north. So civilians are there, and many of them will be killed, not because we want, because in spite of the fact that we don't want it, But what we have is to fight Hamas, and Hamas is involving himself with the civilian population because he understands that his interest is to maximize the number of civilians that will be killed. Our interest is to minimize the number of civilians who will be killed because he needed for approaching the media and in the international community, his interest that we will kill more Palestinians, and even only because of that, leave alone the moral point of view and the tactical point of view, only because of that, we should minimize it, and that we try to do. There is no guarantee.
Ari, you were asking about if there was an incident that Israeli soldiers were killed because we were taking too many security or
Precautions.
cautions. It's too early to answer something like that. I can tell you that in general term from the briefings I've got from the IDF, no, we are not there. We are not taking the same measures as we did in different escalations. However, there are the discrimination and the different measures that we are trying to apply in order to avoid the collateral damage and the kill of uninvolved civilians are still there, and they are applied in a different manner in different situations.
Well, as we close up on the end of our time, General Aish, I'll turn to you for any final remarks you'd like to give.
I think we are going to continue to meet here in the next few weeks. There is a lot of work still to be done in Gaza, and we have to keep our eyes open. And the issue is not only Gaza, as I told you in different briefings, it's to be ready up in the north and to continue to do what the IDF is doing in Judea and Samaria in order to make sure that we are not surprised again from that sector. Vis-a-vis the Red Sea and the Houthis, I think General Amidrov mentioned it at the beginning. It's a mission for the international community with the leadership of the US. I'm sure that they are going to deal with it as they did with this kind of missions in the past.
General Amidrov, I'll let you have the last comments.
I think that the sum up of General Aish was very good and give all the important points.
Well, thank you to the audience and to our panelists for joining us. You can find all of JINSA's work on our website, jinsa.org. Please check your email inboxes for our next webinar and future publications. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day.
Good evening.
Good evening. Happy holidays.